Welcome, Wilda Previl. Girl.
Yes,
How are you?
good. I'm very good.
You're
How
very
are you?
good. I'm so glad you're here because man, oh man, what you do is literally magical.
Aw.
Like I think it's magical. Wilda is a professional business astrologer, and we're gonna really dig into this more because there's magic. But before I start tearing off with my questions and you talking about yourself and astrology and all the goods, I'm going to read something to you
Okay.
about you
Oh,
and just for the audience just to learn a little bit. Nothing that I share is not on public. I look
right.
publicly to find stuff, so you should not be shocked. But here, let me read this, and it's quick,
Okay.
it's brief. um, Wilda Previl is a professional astrologer and social sales strategist who helps you take your ideal clients from strangers to loyal customers. By helping you refine your offer for maximum conversion, she assists with structuring your social media strategy for leading attraction and conversion, or for lead attraction and conversion, and helps you form your automation systems to help nurture and close leads, even when you aren't in the office. And she's doing this using astrology. She's the missing member to your dream team to help you go from stressed to sold out.
Ooh, girl.
How did that feel to just hear
Listen,
that?
I
How
just
did that
hear,
feel?
I just hear the Cash App notifications and the Venmo just going out. Right?
Yes, yes.
Listen, you saw me better than I did.
That's
I
why I
love
like to
it.
read, let people kind of marinate in their gifts.
Yes.
Yeah, no. So that means everybody needs to tap in. We're gonna share in a moment. You gotta listen to the whole podcast first, though.
Yes.
So you can really, but tell us, Wilda, you do something very unique.
Yeah.
And you, I know, are just hitting this space of 40.
Mm-hmm.
And your astrology, I'm trying to figure out how to, because I know the answers to these, but I want people to be able to I want you to be able to explain this story a bit. But you're just now reaching 40, and
Oof.
you are just now kind of really moving full thrust
Yeah.
into this astrology. So share with the audience just a little bit more about what it means to be an astrologer. What is that for
Oh,
you?
yeah.
And why at this point of life were you really moving forward in this?
Man, okay, so I have to go back a little bit in order to actually reach today where I am right now, right?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So, and it's funny because I told this story earlier, and that's why I feel like I'm unfolding even more. It's so interesting.
Mm.
But when I was about 31, I hadn't had children yet. I didn't have my first child until about 2 weeks before my 32nd birthday.
Oh
And
wow.
sometime, if not before that or after that, but sometime during the pregnancy and then becoming a mom, where I really sat with myself and I thought, oh my God, I am in charge of another human being. No, like for real. This is not payroll, this is not like, family member. No, this is, I'm in charge for a whole human being's life. And I cannot believe God gave me the responsibility. Like, who thought that was a good idea? Hold up, wait a minute. Wow, this is real. Right? I'm about to cuss a little bit,
Oh,
just
you can. It's all
okay,
right. It's all
so
right.
people know that this is just who I am because that's exactly how it came to me. But I said, "Yo, I'm gonna really be. Hold on, a mom? Like, who thought that was a good idea?" And then I thought, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And then it really hit me when I thought about what it meant to raise a human being, right?
Mm.
What kind of
Mm-hmm.
mother that I want to be, what that looked like, and the relationship that would unfold over the course of this child's lifetime, and what
Mm-hmm.
that would look like, because I was very well aware that parenthood changes you, but it also grows you up. right?
Absolutely.
I didn't know what that looked like, but I was well aware that that meant that I needed to be a different person. And so I started to look at my life and look at what had become my life and what
Mm.
patterns and all the things. And I was like, oh, I don't really like this. I don't think it's a good idea for me to be a parent right now. God, can we rewind
Can we reach it? Can we change it?
a little bit? Because, are you sure me? Are you sure I'm fit for the job?
Yeah.
Kind of like when you get a promotion or something, or you're like, oh, wow, okay, responsibilities. Okay, cool. And so I thought to myself, man, I do not like what this looks like. And I asked the question,
Mm.
yo, what the fuck is wrong with me? That was the question, right?
That was the question that we all say.
I'm
What the
like,
fuck's wrong?
I
Yes.
cannot be 31 and not have had the millions and the career and where's my little McMansion? Like, this isn't that what happens when you turn, don't you just turn 30
Don't
and
you
then
turn 30 and it just like poof, ain't it there?
happens,
Right, right,
Look, like someone
right.
lied to me. Someone lied to me, and I need to talk to the genie in the sky. We're gonna call him God, and I need to
Ah.
figure it out. Like, so you need to tell me what is wrong with me, because clearly I'm not doing something right. And I really just went into myself, and that was the question that started it all, right? If I'm gonna be
Mhm.
honest, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I did the thing that most people do. You try to find yourself. And I did so through books. And I did all what I would call the rich white boy books. I read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Who Moved My Cheese, Awaken the Giant Within, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. I did all.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, surely I'm going to find the answer in a book. And that didn't happen. Right? Of course it didn't happen, because the book
No.
only unfolds just a little bit, but there's something called experience in life that actually has
Yeah.
to happen.
Yep.
And so that's what happened. And so I said, I need to figure this out. I have a child now. I'm a mother. It's a whole new game, and I've leveled up in a way that I was not prepared for.
Mm.
And then somehow, some way, when you are going down that rabbit hole of soul searching, somehow, some way, the answer came to me in the most unconventional, I did not ask for this. I didn't. I can honestly say I was not ready for this, but there is a
Mm.
woman by the name of Chani Nicholas. I
Mhm.
have no idea how she came into my universe, but I found her, and she is an astrologer. She was born in Canada, but she now lives in LA. And she, even at the time, she hadn't written a book, but she had written about astrology in a way that had made me feel so seen.
Mm.
It made me feel like I was witnessed. Have you ever felt
Mhm. Girl,
witnessed?
absolutely.
Right?
This is keep going, because yep, this is the path.
That
This
was
is the
it.
path.
That
Yep.
was it. I felt seen. I felt witnessed. I felt heard. I felt exposed in my unraveling. And I
Mm.
felt like this was it. I said, but astrology, though, like, come on. Like, God is pulling my leg at this point, because
I know, because you hadn't really been digging into astrology prior to this?
no, the most I know about
Wow.
astrology is my sun sign, like most of us. You're an
Right.
Aries like I am, or a Leo, or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
And the generalizations that people tell you about astrology. And that's it, And it's like, oh, okay, well, I
Wow.
guess I'm a little aggressive. I guess I'm impatient, whatever.
Oh.
And that was it. And I thought, wait a minute, like, there's something in her writing. There's a way in which that, again, just being seen through astrology, the way that she wrote, that I had never witnessed before. You know how when you go with your mom to the grocery store on a Saturday and you're like, okay, I'm just gonna read these magazines or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
waiting for you. So I knew a little bit about that, but that was literally not even scratching the surface, right? And so astrology had made its way to me. I tell people that I did not come for astrology; it came for
It
me.
came for you. It
Came
did.
for me in a big way, and I did not even realize that I was undergoing a new journey. I did not even think about it. I was like, oh yeah,
Mm.
surely it's motherhood. And it was obviously that, but
Mhm.
the way that motherhood had revealed itself was through the lens of astrology. So when I tell people, when I was younger, I used to say, God, and I'm not saying motherhood is not I had no children then, like motherhood changes. Obviously, I've never, ever, ever discounted that. Never. I've always respected mothers, women, all of the things. Obviously, I'm a woman, and I've always respected mothers. But I never wanted to be the kind of mother who thought, oh, motherhood changes you. Like,
Yeah.
of course it changes you. But this was a very different, very personal, very intimate journey that I
Mhm.
would not have witnessed if it had not been for astrology.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that is super powerful because I do think that, astrology is something that, a lot of times when I talk to people who are astrologers or who are heavy into it, are like, oh, yeah, since I was a child, I've always, and to hear that astrology kind of came into your world, not with you necessarily seeking it as such. And it's now, in fact, how you make a living and how you are of service and serving your purpose.
Mhm.
And you didn't do that until your 30s, beginning the process of that. I really want people to hear that, because so often we think we have to have it all figured out by the time we're 20. And so we're pushing our kids, yes, pushing our kids to pick their majors and pick the perfect college for them that's going to be the perfect and the this. And it's like,
Yeah.
we don't even know.
You don't even know.
You,
Oh, you don't even know.
you don't even
I can
know.
promise you don't even know, right? Michelle Obama,
Yeah.
which is fascinating to me because for those of you who are into astrology, she and I have the same North Node in the sign of
Mm.
and I'm going to go back to that a little bit later, but she said this thing, I don't know if it was during an interview or some kind of first lady's address or something, where she says that as you're mentioning, that we have this thing where we're pressuring our children to know and know and know by the time they're 5, by the time they graduate high school, by the
Yeah.
time they graduate from
Yeah.
college. You're just supposed to know what you're supposed to do. And
Yeah.
she's like, I'm 40 and I don't, or 45, and I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. And I was like, you know what, Michelle? Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Okay,
Yes.
I
Which
feel
is, such a gift to give our children, to
yes.
allow them. I mean, my son's in college right now and he's having all these epiphanies about,
Yeah.
learning systems and not necessarily fitting in that.
Yeah.
And recognizing that, he understands the importance and the value. At the
Yeah.
other side, he understands himself.
Yeah.
And he's attempting right now to kind of figure this out and be messy and clumsy, and I'm just giving him the space. Go
That's
explore, discover. I'm not pushing one way or the other, just be. And I know I don't hear very many parents talking about that about their children, and they're worrying about them. And I'm like, this is where I don't know, those of us who are 40 and above, were given those same liberties.
mm-mm.
And so it's a gift to be able to give your kid the opportunity to explore. So now you have how many children now? Because we want people to put this in
Girl, I don't
perspective.
know what happened, but it's like when we're talking about North Node, we're talking about Cancer. Cancer is the archetype of the mother and the nurturer. And when I
Yes.
tell you, astrology is so funny, like when you really start digging into your chart, it's not until, and they're knocking on my door.
I
It's
know. If we hear the babies, this is why I want to be able to let the people know
okay,
she don't got one kid.
okay,
So go
okay.
ahead.
I had one, and then literally shortly after, I didn't realize how fertile I was. I had twins,
So that's
and then I
three.
had a fourth. And I was like, "Ooh, 4 is my favorite number. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, I'm good here." And then I had 5. And I'm like, what's funny is that 4 is my favorite number. And not to make this too woo or anything, but it just so happens that I had 4 pregnancies. So it's like, I see why.
There you go.
I've got so
There
many
you
jokes,
go.
like, we have just been having, he, has been having a laugh at my expense over the it has been, it has been a ride.
It has been, I mean, the fact that you have 5 kids in 8 years, girl, listen, I already know. I only have 2, and I'm always like, "Whoo, Lord," so I know. Well, let's dig a little into astrology, because
Let's dig into
I love astrology, and it's because of astrology how I met you.
yeah.
And it's because of you, as well as maybe, and Channy Nichols. I mean, because she's an amazing, what she does with astrology to help people better understand is amazing. But you
Um,
definitely spurred the engine.
yeah.
I met you on Clubhouse, and I heard
Yes.
you in a room explaining how to use astrology for self-care for
Mhm.
each zodiac sign, for each sun sign. And
Mhm.
I I mean, and it was a long room, and I was dry. I had to go shopping. I was doing all kinds of stuff, but it was one of those rooms where you could just sit
Yeah.
in the audience and just listen. And I was
Mhm.
like mesmerized because, unlike you, I've been into astrology since I was a little girl, but I
Okay.
never had anybody, particularly not anybody Black, be
Yes.
able to sit down and really talk about astrology in this very everyday, matter of fact, helpful way.
Yeah.
So please, because some people are going to be listening to this who totally maybe have the only reason they're listening to this because they are a little curious about astrology, or you have those people who are down for it and they just want to hear more and more.
Mhm.
But I want to kind of talk to the people who maybe still need to better understand, what is astrology, and we've made it into this, in some spaces, as this scary thing that could potentially have some demonic value to it, or should be away from those who practice a certain faith.
Yeah.
Can you just give some basic kind of I don't know, definition, or not definition, but just what is astrology, and
Honestly,
why do we need to know it?
so one of the easiest and the best ways that I explain what astrology is through the phrase or the idiom as above, so below.
Mm,
Every single faith I know talks about an as above, so below. We talk about the heavens, we talk about the sky and the movement, right? And we don't really truly think about it as no further than what we have been taught through
mm,
our church or our faith, not even our values, but so it's literally just limited to that, right?
mm,
We have such a disconnect to what that looks like because we're so accustomed to giving someone else something else, um, for lack of a better word, power or domain
mm,
over our relationship with what that means as above, so below.
mm,
So if you've ever had, and it's funny because I had a client yesterday, I had a call yesterday in which I had a woman. We've been friends online for a long time, and she is very curious about astrology. And she told me, she was like, she is her grandmother was very into the
mhm.
that kind of world, but she wasn't. She was raised in church. I'm not sure if it was because of her parents. And she says that if you notice, like I'll pop in and I'll make a post, I'll see the post and I'll comment and I'll engage and I'll go right back. And I was like, I bet it's because you feel guilty, like you're doing something
Yes,
wrong.
yes.
But I want to diminish any of that because I want you to go back to the story of Jesus. And I want you to look at the story on how Jesus was discovered, and not discovered by way of his mother and father, but from the outside world. There were three wise men. And the way that they discovered Jesus was through what we call the great conjunction in astrology, but in layman's term, a great star. And they
Mhm,
to follow that great star because that star only comes around every once in a while. And if you follow that star, depending on where it lands specifically on the map of the earth, if you will, that there is either going to be some kind of kingdom, some kind of king, or some really great, if you will, experience in that place, right? A king, a
mm,
kingdom, a nation created, or something like that. And they did. When they
mm,
did, they would then bring gifts. They come bearing gifts. You know the story, blah, blah, blah. And they discovered Jesus. Now,
mm,
if the Bible that you read every week, whenever you're, wanting to read it, there are so many references to astrology. They don't
yes,
necessarily say it like that, right? But when you're looking
yes.
at the great star, you can at least see that stars are in the sky. You can at least see that. But they're everything from it exists and you don't even know it. And we'll talk about archetypes a little bit later. But some of the questions that I have is, why is it that your church can build an altar, but I can't have one in my home?
Mm,
Holy water is literally just water that has been, I don't know, sanctified by someone who has some kind of ordained power. Why is it that you can't have that at your home? You have to think about when the powers that be that are in organizations, and we'll call them churches, are so accustomed to literally having your power in their hands. And I'm not saying that they're
mhm,
using it for bad. What I'm saying is you need to start questioning these things. And it's all over the Bible that you can ask God questions. So why is it that human beings are stopping you from asking those questions?
Mm,
The kinds of conversations that I ask my Christian friends or my friends who are in whatever religion. I say Christian because I was born Catholic. You know, it's a
mhm.
based organization. But when I think about, that, it's like you have to ask yourself these questions and allow yourself to have your own relationship with God. It doesn't have to be through the lens of going to a church from 9 to 1. It's being from this person who is spewing these words that feel good to you, that those words, if I see it still as that, those words are still godly. I still, and
Right.
sometimes ask me, do you believe in God? Believe it or not, astrology is the reason why I believe in God more than ever.
Mm.
More than
Say
ever.
that again. So, okay, me too. And I think that for me, since childhood,
Mhm.
I grew up in a situation where my parents, I'm approaching 50. So, my father is deceased, but he would have been 90 this year if he
Oh,
were alive. And my mother is in her 80s. And so that already tells you they were raised in Georgia and North Carolina. So that already tells you kind of the setting and what church, the role of church. My father's father, my grandfather was a minister. So he lived in the church. And so I think because of their childhood and their being raised so heavily in the church,
mhm.
um, as they got into adulthood and met and married and had their own kids, they didn't push the church on us
Yeah.
because they had seen, I think, a lot of aspects that they didn't want to be involved with, but
Mhm.
didn't necessarily know what to do with that, but they did know enough to not push it or superimpose it on me and my sister.
Yeah.
And so with that, I had this curiosity about astrology just naturally. Like I just remember looking in the magazines and I could easily, by the time I was about 10, I pretty much knew each archetype. I was like, oh, Scorpio is this is this, is that. And I would say and explain to my parents, and they would just be like, wow, that's interesting. And they would never push me any other way. But that was as far as it got.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
really wasn't until I got into the world, like to college, I thought that everybody, because even, in high school and stuff, I mean, I wasn't going around talking about
Right.
astrology or anything, but I mean, I might have mentioned it. It was really no pushback. It really wasn't until I got into college and into early adulthood that I started hearing more about how negative, how you shouldn't be believing in that. And I was just like, oh my gosh, so then I started getting quiet about it because I didn't want to, obviously, now I'm like, and I wasn't so skilled and versed in it that I could break it down and tell. I just
Right.
thought that it made sense. It
Yes.
just made sense.
Yes.
And so I was quiet about it really till my 40s.
Ugh.
It took after it really, and it, to be completely honest,
Yeah.
it wasn't really, when COVID hit
Ah,
and I knew, okay, the ish is getting real now. Like we really getting real now about us like really having to tap in.
yeah.
And so for me, that's when I that's the babies. For me, that's when I started tapping in more. So it took me into my 40s to begin to start to really think and contemplate. So, girl, we go on and on. So this is what I'd like us to do because we don't have much time, but I want, first of all, if you guys, we're going to, Wilda's going to share how you can get in touch with her. So if you want to get a reading done, or if you're, just wanting to get a consultation or what have you to better understand some of
Yeah.
this, you can. But Wilda has been like a mentor for me, a coach for me to help teach me. And I feel I claim it now, Wilda. I say I am at the intermediate because I've been studying on my own. I know
Yeah.
we haven't had our sessions in a while, but I've been studying very heavily actually on my own. And I'm like, no, girl, you intermediate, you almost at advanced. I'm now starting to get to this transit to
Okay.
really, but I know the houses. I know, I
There you
got it
go.
now. I know the energies and I'm all this. So the reason why I've wanted to learn even heavily is because what I have found, the more that I've started to coach people, I've always known that if you could tell me your sun sign automatically, in terms of as a counselor and as a coach, I know better energetically what you're going to be more receptive to and what you're not going to be as receptive to.
Yeah.
So I've
Yeah.
always done that.
Mhm.
But now I'm like, now that I can look at a birth chart, I can look at the houses, I can see where different planets lie and the energy, it helps me even more be able to help people and
Mhm.
coach them through different situations. When I'm able to look at their aspects, I can now see, okay, this is why this is always kind of repetitively presenting a challenge for you.
Wow.
So if you could share with our listeners, and then we're going to have to be wrapping up soon, but just how do you use astrology for business, being this business astrologer?
One of the things that I use astrology for, or one of the ways that I use astrology, is to ask you if the work that you are doing feels satisfying to your soul.
Mm,
Does it feel good for you to show up in the way that you're showing up? Because you could possibly have a business and you're making money and you're doing well, but it doesn't feel like you're fulfilling a purpose. It doesn't
mm,
feel great to you. It doesn't feel like it's lighting you up. And one of the ways that I help business owners, whether you're starting or maybe even never started, but you want to start, you want to, know what's in the heavens for you, right? People are very
yeah.
curious as to what is in the heavens for us because we're accustomed to waking up, going to work 9 to 5, blah, 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 getting a paycheck. But you want to do work that feels really good to your soul. And so one of the ways that I do that is I look at different placements in your chart. I look at the houses, as we mentioned. And when we say houses, we mean areas of life. You'll notice if you've never pulled a birth chart before, then when you look at the birth chart for the first time, you'll notice that it's broken up into like a pizza, in a pizza, right? 12 pieces of,
Right.
right? 12 slices of pie. And those 12 slices speak very specifically to areas in our life that we cannot escape from, right? You cannot escape from a very personal, intimate part of you. You cannot escape from how you make money and how you are here to support yourself because astrology speaks to that, believe it or not. You cannot
Yeah.
escape from family, whether it is family that you have a really good soul ties with, or family where you're like, ooh, I got a break from this generation. Okay, you can't escape that. And it's there. I can see all of that in your chart, and a really skilled astrologer can see that as well. And this is one of the ways that we can help you, right? And this is why
Mm,
astrology is so powerful because, yes, I do business, but it's really beautiful to see the different ways in which your chart is speaking to you, right? And
mhm.
so, when I look at the chart, I look at one specific house. One of my favorite houses is the second house, right? And the second house is where you'll see the number two. It's usually a number two, and you'll see that the sign that the house is in speaks to the style in which you are here to support yourself. So just really quickly, just to give you guys a good takeaway, is when you look at the house, and if it's, for example, a fire sign, you can know that there is a way in which you are here to support yourself, that is a way to inspire others, because the fire signs speak to spirit. So there is
Mm,
oriented, getting people riled up and spurred up. What that looks like will be colored through the planets that you have there and other aspects as well. But if you have a fire sign, there is something very inspirational about the work that you do.
and guess who has a fire sound in her second house?
Hello?
That would be me.
Same. Okay. I have
Oh my gosh, I have Leo.
Sagittarius, right? And so there's something
Leo.
about the way that fire in itself, when you look at the discovery of fire, it made all of the inventions that we had up afterwards, right? Because fire is light, it's warm, it's generative, and we need it every day, right? And so that's the
Mm,
fire signs. And then if you have an earth sign, there is a way in which you are here to support yourself that is very tangible through the material resources. So whether that be money, which is most likely money, and if it's not money, then there is a way in which your work creates a tangible result for the clients that you have. If
mm,
it is an air sign, then the air signs speak to communication or exchanges with one person to another, like Libra or Gemini and Aquarius, with other people. So there's a
mhm.
way in which communications, by way of you maybe being a speaker, maybe being an author, maybe being a podcaster. But there, when we say air signs, think airways, communications,
Yeah,
words, writings, right? And the
yeah.
exchange from one person to another. Okay. But if it is a fire, earth, water,
Water.
the
Yeah.
water signs are here to heal. So there is a way in which your work is meant to heal people, to nurture, to be able to hold space, in a sense, to kind of be a therapist, if you will, because water signs are very therapeutic, right? No pun intended, but there is a way in which the water signs are very therapeutic in the way that they show up for other people.
Mm,
So you
mm.
to that. So I hope that
This is that.
right there.
So this, okay. So listeners, You see how she just broke that down really quickly? And some of you are like, oh my God, wow. Others of you are like, wait, what? Huh? I thought I was just a Cancer. Like, what was that
Oh,
mean?
wow, you're much more than that.
So, oh, you're actually, and this was what was fascinating to me. And I didn't know this until really I started working with you and really started digging into this. It's like, oh, we're every single sign.
Yes.
Every single sign is in us.
Mhm.
It just shows up in different parts of our lives and in different ways
Yeah,
depending on where.
exactly. So
And
you are a Scorpio sun sign, right? And we
yes.
your fifth house. Well, I'm a
Yes.
Scorpio rising, and that shows up in my first house. So that intensity, people meet it in different spaces. And so
Mhm.
when you know this about people, you stop putting them in boxes and you really start to dig a little bit. And this is one of the most powerful things I love about astrology. Because once you see, oh, wait a minute, oh God, I can't stand Gemini. Well, what is Gemini saying in your chart,
It's
honey?
like that's what I said because it's in you.
It's in you. And why do you keep attracting them? I tell people that this is a life.
Yeah.
So if you keep attracting one particular sign, that there's something in that. I say, if you can't afford a therapist, right? Because not all of us can, that's true. And I tell people I couldn't afford therapy. I didn't understand psychology, and so astrology made its way to me, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
didn't mean for that to run, but that's really how it felt. Right. I'm like, why do I attract Virgos? Why?
Yeah. So tell why is because I know a lot of people have that question.
Oh my
What's
God.
that about? What's that about?
Here's a pro tip. I want you to pull a birth chart. Right. I study whole sign houses. Sometimes you'll see a default to Placidus, but I use whole sign. If it doesn't matter to you, it doesn't matter. But I just want you to look at the sign in which you are attracted. For example, I'll use myself. I attract a lot of Virgos, and I couldn't understand it. And it wasn't until I discovered astrology that I realized, oh, Virgo is in my 11th house of community and good fortune. In other words, the 11th house speaks to us about the allies, the friends, the organization,
Mm.
networks that we have. And what's interesting is that there's a point in the chart that is supposed to be the highest point in your chart, and it says what are you known for in the visible public. And sometimes, almost always it'll be in the 10th house, but every once in a while you'll find a chart where it's in the ninth house, or like me, it's in the 11th house. So
Mm.
MC, as we call it, right? It's short for media coli. I can't even remember how to pronounce it, but it's the MC, and you'll notice it because it's always labeled MC. And my MC is in Virgo. So there is a way in which the Virgo archetype is telling me that I need to show up as the community healer, that I need to show up as the
Wow.
one who tells people that they can heal in a natural way, a natural system, because that's what Virgos do. And what is astrology? It is a natural system of self care.
Yes, it's thank you for saying it's a natural system of self-care because that's really how I am attempting to use it now for myself and for others and how I brought you kind of in the fold.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's talk about how people then can connect with us because I listen, we can go on and on. If you want to hear more, you've got to go join on Patreon because we are going to do a bonus where Wilda's going to explain just a little bit more, but that's going to be only for our Patreon subscribers. The other thing about Wilda is our Patreon subscribers get to talk to her every month
Everyone.
every month for a full hour talking about astrology and whatever the sun sign is of the month,
Mhm.
whatever energy we are in. So if you're like, wait a minute, wait, I want that piece right there. Then you have to jump, you got to jump on over to Patreon and become a subscriber. And that level to meet with Wilda every month, that's our high level because that's a lot of her precious time. So that's in our She Collective level. We will gift you occasionally here or there if you are at the more basic tier to join us. That's not though something that we offer all the time, but you every time if you're part of the She Collective. So that's the $29 tier. But I was going to say my MC is Pisces, so that means, and it's in the ninth house, I think.
And it's in the ninth house. So the ninth house
Yeah.
is what we call the house of God. So there is a way in which spirituality is what you want to be known for and seen, right? People know you to be the person who brings the collective into a sense of healing, right? And we're
Oh
talking about
wow.
what is Pisces. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It is where we go to rest. When you've done all the work of the first 11 signs, Pisces is like, I'm going to release because there's no more work, there's no more there is no more being, there's no more human, there's only being.
Mm,
Be, right? You let
mm.
go. You let go and let God. That's literally the
Yeah.
model, if you will, of Pisces. And so there's a way in which it brings humans into understanding that we are all, what is it? Human beings having a spirit. No, we are all spirits having a human
Human
experience.
experience.
And
Yeah.
what is that? It is forgiveness, it is compassion, it is understanding, and it is knowing that every single person is here to experience something, Pisces, and then you go back onto the earth, and then you go on, onto the next experience. Mhm.
See, isn't this special? It's just so like hearing you say that. I mean, because it just resonates so deeply with me, which is the whole reason I even do this podcast
Yeah.
is my point of doing finding your voice after 40 is because there's this weird thing that or not weird, astrologically I'm learning there's a very interesting thing that's happening for us in our
Mhm.
Chiron return and all of this
Yes.
that yes, that once we, reach past the 40s, otherwise known as midlife crisis, it's not really
Mhm.
that it's there's purpose and healing and what we came here for just is really really being called to the table
Yeah.
a bit more. So that's what makes, that's why I even wanted to do this podcast. This has been amazing. We could listen, we have only touched, we are in the embryonic stage of
Literally. it gets it gets so much deeper. It gets so much deeper.
so
Now, I
much.
wanted to cover just a little bit more about the ninth house, but the ninth house is what we call in business astrology the house of publishing.
Of
So if
course it
you
is.
don't have a book in you, if you don't have a creative artistic work in you, there's some way in which it wants to be known.
Oh no,
So,
I've released music, and funny you should say book, but I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna leave it there. I can't. Oh, shh, I can't
listen,
say that.
okay, shh,
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 shh, shh, shh.
shh.
But astrology is really. And the funny thing is this: is whether or not you study astrology, you're living it out. You're living it out.
What do I tell the students every month? You may
Yes,
not believe in astrology, but it believes in you. Why?
it
You wake
believes
up
in you.
every day. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Guess what? Those 7 days of the week are based on astrology. Every single day of
Astrology.
the week is based on a planet. So when we say Monday in Spanish or French, it's lunes or lundi. You can automatically, oh, Luna, the moon. Oh, when
Moon.
it's Sunday, it is the sun. Saturday is ruled by Saturn. I'll
It
let you
just yeah, no, and so that's why I wanna that's what I've been trying to encourage. Yes, I've been trying to encourage people. It's there whether you it's like saying, "I don't believe it's raining." Well,
okay.
you can believe it or not,
or
but
not.
it is, so awesome. How can people get in touch with you if they want to get a reading or if they wanna learn more about what their business, professional life should really be about? Where should they go?
The
Social
easiest
media
way
wise or any otherwise.
easiest way to contact me is through Instagram.
Okay.
So you can contact me through Instagram.com/ Wilda Previl.
Yes. It's your whole name. That's your at
I
yep,
keep
at
it
Wilda
simple.
Previl.
That's it. At Wilda
And we're
Previl.
going to include that in the show notes. And again, if you want to, be on a regular with Wilda, let's say I
Mhm.
still recommend you get a birth chart reading. You do get
Yes.
a discount on that birth chart reading if you're part of
Okay.
our yes, if you're part of our Patreon. We got all kinds of little goodies and bonuses. But
Okay.
if you know that you because and astrology takes time, you guys takes time. It's not something, oh, I got a reading and I know myself. Like
Yes.
it's really, so these monthly workshops are so, so helpful. The students who are in it, everyone who's in it, they're like, oh my God, thank you. Because we like figuring it all out. So definitely, head over to patreon.com/finding your voice. And that's how you can join. You can join at any level to see us on video and to get this bonus that we're getting ready to go into. But if you want that monthly workshop with her, then that's the $29.99 level.
Come
So
on through, people. Let's get this hit. Let's get
get
this
it, get it going. All
hit.
right. Well, for our listeners on Apple and Spotify, the podcast, we're getting ready to come to a close. But if you want to hear more, just hop over to Patreon and you'll be able to hear this bonus. But you have been wonderful. We've only touched the surface. We're going to ask a little bit more. Anything else you want to say to the public before we go into our bonus round?
Honestly, we touched it at the very end. You may not believe in astrology, but like I said, it believes in you.
Mm,
I to go right back to the beginning again. Like I said, I could not afford therapy. I did not understand the psychology. And astrology really helped me to understand me. And if you really are tired of your own shit, you're tired of what
Mm.
it looks like, what your life looks like, and you just can't figure it out, I can put this on everything that I've studied for 8 years plus. I promise you, astrology will help you to figure it out. You just gotta
Yes.
start. You just
Yes.
start. That's it. Now, one of
That
the
is
ways
it.
to
And
come.
yes, yes, yes. And on that note, I keep saying we're going to end. On that note, finding your voice beginning in 2023, I am going to be starting to help clients. I don't do what Wilda does. So listen, if you need a reading, you need to go over to Wilda. But if you want to be able to have some introductions into how do I begin to even just tap into this idea of self-exploration when it comes to astrology, I am doing, self-care coaching in that very beginning stage. And then once you're really moving through this, that's when, I'm going to be referring you to Wilda so you can really dig it up. So, all righty. Well, thank you guys who are listening. We're going to continue on with the bonus and we'll be back next week. All right, on to the bonus. Okay, so
Oh,
Wilda,
yes,
I
ma'am.
know that quick, right? It's really quick because I'm not. That makes the editing really, yeah.
We always meet like this.
I
It's
know
good.
the editing makes it easier if I just pause, and then I just come back in.
Yeah.
So the people who are on Patreon are watching us, go through these pause and then keep going. But I would love for you to share with those who are watching this bonus idea of how can, and you kind of said this in the thing,
Mhm.
but can you give more tips of how a person should get started with astrology? How
Yeah.
can they begin? Do they have to go get a reading first and get their chart, or how can they get started?
So you can do it like how I did, right? You can literally just duct tape it together. And I say duct tape not because it's the worst thing. More so you're curious, right? And you're maybe even scared. Let's be real, right? Maybe a few of you have come from church, or maybe a few of you have come from, even if it's not church, you've heard like, oh my God, no, it's not, you're not supposed to do that. But you're so curious because you know that there's something that's calling you, right?
Okay.
One of the ways that you can do it, one of the easiest ways, is to go into any one of the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of websites where you can pull a birth chart. What you will need is a date of birth, which you'll have, a place of birth, which you'll have. But the key piece to making a birth chart really, really unique to you is the time of birth. And this is where kind of my newer clients get kind of stumped a little bit. They're like, oh my God, but I don't know my birth time. And I'm going to help you to figure that out just a little bit. If you don't know your birth time, the exact minute, and I'm going to tell you why that's important a little bit later, but if you don't know your birth time, you want to do a little bit of research. One of the things that you can do is to ask the person who birthed you, if they're still alive, obviously, Mama, what time was I born? And mama's gonna tell you, well, baby, I don't know. It was sometime I was laboring all night and you came when the sun was up. And you're like, well, mom,
Yeah.
was that before breakfast or after? Well, baby, I don't know. I didn't eat any breakfast. Okay. And then you're gonna ask anyone else,
Ah.
because mom, I'm sure, called, someone else, whether it's an auntie or a cousin or an uncle or whoever.
Mm.
And then you're gonna start to write down all of the possible birth times that you can. Okay. Then the next layer of this is you are going to, by the grace of God, we have something in the United States called vital statistics.
Mm.
You are going to call vital statistics and you are going to order a long form birth certificate. That
Mm.
is not the instant one that you get when you're in the office if you lost
Mhm.
or your house got burned down and you can get it.
Mhm.
But this one is going to come through the mail and is going to be certified, right? And it will
Mm.
have your birth time on there if it were recorded in the hospital.
Okay.
That's layer two. The next thing that you're going to do, if you're like, listen, I really want to do this and I want to know down to the minute what time I was born, believe it or not, astrology is such a powerful practice that there are astrologers that do something called chart rectification, in which you will meet with someone, not me because I don't do this, who does chart rectification, and they are going to ask you a bunch of questions about your life. And here's what they're doing. They're going to ask you if you had children, and if you did, what date and time, down to the
Mm.
could. They're going to ask you if you got married. They're going to ask you if you've ever been in any car accidents. They're going to ask you if you went to college or school. They're going to ask you if you traveled. They're going to ask you if you moved. They're going to ask you a bunch of questions, and you're like, wow, this person is so nosy. And they are, but they're nosy because those, believe it or not, astrology is so powerful that, you know how sometimes someone just comes into your life, you're like, oh my God, this just came out of nowhere. Yeah, but no.
Yeah, but no. Yeah.
Because what they're doing is they're literally stitching your life backwards to the events that are happening in your life based on the date that you gave them, down to the minute of when you were born.
Wow.
Chart rectification.
That is amazing.
That can
That
run
is
you
amazing.
$75. I've seen on Fiverr, if you want to,
Yeah.
I've seen like one or two people for like $75. I think it's kind of, in all honesty, I think it's kind of relatively inexpensive to know
Yeah.
so much about you, because I've seen as much as like, a couple $100, but you can get it for as little as $75.
Good grief.
Mm-hmm.
That's fascinating. So definitely, you guys, that thank you for sharing that, and so that people can begin this, because if you've been kind of lost in that, you just really broke that down. I know that for myself, I have a couple of people right now that I'm running a pilot through of the self-care coaching using astrology. And one of the people, she didn't have her exact time. So
Mm-hmm.
we sent her to vital statistics. So she's in the process now of getting that, because once you really start to get into this, it's like, yeah, no, this is not even going to give you, I mean, this gives you just a really vague thing if I don't
Mm-hmm.
have the time. But once you have that, we really can start figuring out things. So awesome. All right. My next question, and then we're going to be wrapping up the bonus. What is something I didn't, and there's a lot I didn't ask, but what
Yes.
is something I didn't ask that you wish I would have? Or what is something you just want people to know more about you,
Ooh.
Wilda?
Okay, so
Yeah.
maybe I can do a two-parter on this one.
Okay.
So the thing that fascinated me most about astrology is, besides knowing that I'm more than just an Aries, that I have all of the parts of the sky, if you will, in me. What was fascinating and what really changed the game was understanding the rising sign. We
Mm.
are all so, oh, I'm Team Aries, I'm Team Leo, I'm Team Scorpio, blah blah blah, and that's great. But you're reading the astrology for the wrong horoscope, and I'm gonna tell you why. So, piggybacking off of the chart rectification, the reason why you want to get your chart rectified is because when we get down to the minute that you were born, what happens is it is going to it's going to the chart in itself, you're going to see the 12 pieces of pine, you're going to see the sun somewhere, you're going to see the moon somewhere, you're going to be like, oh my God, Mercury, oh, that's why it goes retrograde, oh my God, you're going to really be fascinated by it. But you're going to look at one very important part, which is the part that is most intimate and personal to you, which is the first house. You're going to have house 1, 2, 3, all the way to 12. But the first house is the one that speaks most intimately to you. And the first house tells us where your ascendant was. And you're like, well, what does that mean? What you'll notice is that the ascendant sign has a little sunrise. Sometimes it'll just say the letters ASC, but it have a little sunrise because it tells me where the sun was rising up, or which sign was rising up from the eastern horizon when you took your first breath. Doesn't matter the time,
Mm,
because
mm,
every 2 hours that sign changes. And you'll notice we have
mm.
12 signs times 2 hours, 24 hours in a day. So
Wow.
when you get that rising sign, you will know that, oh, I am an Aries, but this sun in Aries is in the sixth house, like it is for me. But
Right.
my rising sign is Scorpio. From now on, you're going to read your horoscope using your rising sign. Why?
Mm,
Because when astrologers write horoscopes, we write it based on, obviously, the 12 signs, but we write it based on the ascendant sign. For example,
mm,
we're Virgo season, so I'll just use Virgo. If I am writing for Virgo, how I'm writing the horoscope for the moment is saying, Virgo, right now the sun is shining down on you, and right now Mercury is retrograding in the inner parts of your psyche, in the 12th house. Why? because
Mm.
right before Virgo, sorry, that is in your second house of how you make money. So you will see that either a paycheck goes missing or there's something in the way that you are working that is asking you to review, reassess. Why? Because after Virgo comes Libra. What we know is that if I'm writing it for the first house, I know all the 12 signs that come after. If, for example, I'm writing it for Scorpio, I know that Scorpio is in the first house. What comes after Scorpio? Sagittarius. So if there's
Mhm.
a transit in Sagittarius, or right now it's in Virgo, for example, I know that Scorpio rising is experiencing Mercury going retrograde right now in the sign of Libra, which is the 12th house. And I know that Virgo is their 11th house. And I know that Leo is their 10th house. So I know that Venus
Wow.
to leave Leo and go into Virgo. I know that. So if I'm writing the horoscope, the only way that I know to write your horoscope, I will not know that your sun is in the sixth house. I will not know that your sun
Right.
is in the 10th house, but I
Right.
will know that the ascendant is in the first house. So that's
Always. Right.
to read your horoscope based on your rising or
Based on
ascendant.
your interesting.
Mhm.
Interesting. Yeah, well, listen, there's so many more little tricks and trades as I've been like, and you start being able to recognize the patterns. And we've talked about how it's like math and,
Yeah.
just really, how it would really help young people learn math and so forth better. And
Yes.
if they could study astrology. Well,
Yeah.
this has been wonderful. I meant to ask you this in the main part because I do, and I didn't because I got so caught up, but I want to include this and I'll probably mention it in the intro
Okay.
because we have a playlist because as a
Ooh.
musician, I can't help but create some kind of music. But what is a theme song for you? What is a song that you hear and it's like, this gets me it just gets me. It gets me. What is
Oh my
that song?
God. Golly, there's so
I
many.
know there's many. I'm horrible with this. I shouldn't ask people this question because I hate
No,
when
no,
people
I
ask me
love
that
it.
question.
'Cause
Okay, all right.
want to know I love it. So it depends on my mood. So
Okay.
I'm gonna tell people that I was a little I was when I was growing up, it was really interesting that I loved rap so much. And I even played a song in my wedding. And I know people are like, oh my gosh, she's so hood. I'm a little bit hood. But
Go ahead,
when
girl. Be a little wretched. A little
when I
wretched.
was walking, not down the aisle, but when we were walking into the, how do you call it? Not the ceremony, but the reception.
Oh, reception.
Right,
Uh-huh.
and they're calling you down the aisle. But I told my husband because I had to scare him like that because he's a little bit more poised than I am.
Ah,
Like, okay, listen, we're gonna walk down to Method Man's "You're All That I Need." He was like, "What are
that's
you
the
saying?"
jam. That's
Yeah,
the jam.
but this is the love song of the century for me, and yeah, and that's my jam.
Method Man and Mary J. That song. Okay,
Yes, yes,
so I'm not married anymore, but when I was married, we created a CD play. So because they didn't have, they didn't have Spotify playlists, right?
yeah.
So we burned CDs as the favorite to everybody. We put our
Uh-huh.
favorite our songs that like we just
Yes,
love
yes,
either as a
yes.
couple or individually. And that one, that was on the
Lit,
CD because that song
okay.
is like that's the song. Like
It
that is
does it
like,
for
oh my
me. There's
God, it
something
does it
about
for me
I
too.
remember the video. I remember seeing
Yep.
them rooftop, and I was like, "Oh my god,
Yep.
I wanna go to New York. I love it so much."
Yep.
Method Man
Yep.
is still so fine to
And
the
yes, I know. And he just makes it like, I need
listen.
a Method Man.
I need
I
the Method
need
Man. I
that.
love
I
it.
need that. Well,
Yep,
that will
Chanel
go on our
Perform.
playlist, and I will let the general public know that that was your song because I forgot to ask that during the main thing. But
Very
awesome.
cool.
Well, thank you so much. We
Oh
are
my
going
goodness,
to
you're welcome. You're
yes, we're
so welcome. This was
uh
so fun. Oh my
it
god,
was
this
fun.
it's like we can do this. I promise we got to stop meeting like this, Kenya.
I know. Is this fun stuff? So remember, because my fifth house of play, that's where my Scorpio is. That's
Nice.
yeah, no, that's I'm all about the play. And then there was something else that suggested. Oh, I think we said because my sixth house, there was something Sagittarius is in
Right.
there. So I like, yeah,
There was something about work has to feel like an adventure. There you go.
yes. And
Ah,
so
there.
ta-da, here we go. So anyway, well, we're gonna wrap up for our Patreon people who are watching this on video. Stay tight, but I am saying goodbye to our Patreon and keep watching. We'll be back again next week for more guests and bonus stuff. It's fun.
All
All
right.
right.
Thank
Take
you.
care.